As the next speaker is setting up, I'll introduce him. So this is Jinfeng Luo. He is a Carnegie Bosch Institute postdoc fellow under Professor Pingbo Tang in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, and also Cleotide Gonzalez from Department of Social and Decision Sciences. He obtained his PhD within the Urban Big Data Lab, or iLab, at the University of Hong Kong. Currently, his work considers human-AI collaboration for improving urban subway flood responses, hence the title of the talk today, which is Integrating Human and AI Advantages Managing Train Service Suspensions During Subway Flooding. Please go ahead.
Okay, good. So I changed my topic a bit. My previous topic is about human AI collaborations, but now I think before that we should do a little bit research about human and do a little bit of research about AI and understand their differences so that we can better collaborate with human and AI. So my topic here is about understanding human decision making in train suspension during urban subway flooding. And I will start with a civil engineer perspective and introduce some basic about subways. So I assume that the background of the audience is diverse. And here, climate change have led more and more floodings all over the world. And the subway is suffering from the flooding. As you know, the water always flows downwards. So the subway is located underground. So a lot of subway floodings happens spatially everywhere, and they become more and more frequent. And in the 2001, it's a very severe incident, which is Zhengzhou subway flooding. Hundreds of people get injured and 14 dead. And as you can see that people standing in the chest deep water and that was still rising. But on the other hand, we still need a resilient subway. Subway is very important, especially during the flooding, during the heavy rainfalls. And subway seems like the only lifeline for people who are still want moving around the cities, and people want to get back home, and people want to take care of their children. They still want to move. So subway located under the ground, it seems like their only lifeline compared with the ground transportations. And another research has pointed out that when there's a disaster, flooding disasters, and the most effective method to recover the cities is recover the subway and its rail system. So we need a resilient subway to adapt to different floodings and bounce back from adversities. And there are different types of flooding affect the subways, like coastal flood, and it's hurricanes, strong winds that drive the wave or tide to the cities. And because it's sea waters, and the water will be corrosive. And second is flash flood, and it's more fast moving, and it's more unpredictable, and it's often result in heavy rainfall and that overwhelm the drainage, the city drainage. And it can happen in wet climate and also dry climate. It can happen in low elevation area, and it can often happen in high level rocky terrains. And the third is the river flood. It's more widespread flood, and it's usually because the upstream river there has heavy rainfall or snow melt or storms, and this happens in large rivers and wide climate. So what if the water gets into the system? And here are some threats that water can cause to the subway system. And first is the track, flooding the track over the third rails. What is the third rail? Third rail is that, as you can see on the right pictures, the third rail is just next to the two running rails, and it is used to provide power, traction power for the trains. And in the middle, the New York City Transit, their rules and regulations say that the water must be below the ball of the rail. The ball of the rail is just the top. It just is a track top, the two running track, their top. So if the water exceeded the track top, and it may have the possibility to contact with the third rail. So the third rail has electricity. It may cause the water boil or set the floating debris on fire. And water can pour into the street level vent and leading to a smoke conditions. As you know, the train moves and it drives, the air also moves. So the air needs an inlet or an outlet. And a street vent, if the rainfall or the water get into the straight vent, and the strong wind will create a lot of aerosol particles and lead to a smoke conditions, so that if the driver cannot see anything, they will stop. And the third is the water impact on the signal system. Along the track, there are a lot of electrical equipment, signal light, well detectors, switch equipment, and the water will short circuit this electrical equipment, and the train operator don't know whether it's safe to go or not. And other threat, it will like exposure the water to axial bearing and gear box. This greased bearings is used to lubricate. But if it mixed with water, it will increase the wear of the bearings. And for other threat like short circuiting the train equipment and weaken the rail bridge, wash away the ballast that stabilize the track. And so after we introduce the threat, if the water come into the subway system, the subway system itself already have certain drainage systems. If you pay attention when you ride the subways, you can see the water storage along the track. There are a sump that can store some of the waters. And on the right pictures, there are straight vent. The water gets into the system through straight vent and the straight stairway. And then this water converges to the track drains. The track drains lead the water to a sump pit. When the water levels reach a certain level in the sump pit, and the pump will be activated automatically. And the water will be pumped to the city sewer system. And so New York subways, there are a lot of pumps that pump a lot of 10 million gallons every day. So these water are, in a dry day, these water are usually the groundwaters. Groundwater keeps seep into the subway tunnel. And we want to understand, although we have the subway drainage system, but why existing subway system often fails. And we conduct multi-case studies. We manually search these informations, like general informations, what happens before the flooding and during the flooding and after the floodings. And here's where we found some problems, categorize them into 4 aspects. First is about capabilities. The subway system, they're designed, the flood protections is not designed for all the flood. They allow some water get into the system, but they require rapid recoveries. And here's a table summarizes the design return period. Design return period is an indicator about the flooding severity. Along the design return period, the more severe the flooding. And as you can see, for the New York City sewer system, is designed the design return period is only 5 years, and even for some other years is 3 years. But it's an old system. It's a very old system. But for some newly regulations, like US have newly regulations for from the ASCE, they regulated that for some critical infrastructure, which is classified into flood design class 4, they need to, their design return period should be 500 years, which means that this infrastructure can prevent a 500 years flood. And all over the world, for Hong Kong, for Taipei, they also have a very long return period. So for the old subway system, like New York City subways, it started constructed by 100 years ago. So it's inadequate to handle the modern flood levels. And another problem is that the subway system is very complex. The complex have internal complex. There's a very complex subsystem like track, train, signal, passengers, and many others. And also external interactions with surface drainage system and third-party responders, first responders. And here's the word sentence that from an MTA officials. He said, in the city, drainage, here the drainage referred to the subway drainage. Subway drainage is dependent on the city sewer. And if the water cannot properly drain, and it will flood the street and eventually flood the subway system. So if the subway is flooded, and the city sewer is also flooded, the water in the subway has nowhere to go. So the subway is rely on the whole urban infrastructure. And then it's uncertainties. Uncertainties here I refer that the outcome and probability distribution is unknown. Both of them are unknowns. We know nothing about them. We don't know what will happen, and we don't know the probabilities. For example, the flood is unpredictable in timing and the location, especially for flash flood. And the flood will also cause secondary hazard, and we don't know where will happen, what kind of secondary hazard will happen, and where it will happen. And then it's dynamic situations. The current conditions is influenced by environmental change and past decisions. And you need, as a train operator, as a control center stuff, and you need to make decisions about train dispatch, individual evacuation, water pumping, and floodgate operations, a lot of operations. And every decisions you made, in every small change, you will have widespread and nonlinear effect throughout the system. And sometimes the feedback is also delayed between action taken and their outcomes. So in these situations, currently we only remain human to do the decisions. Humans have strengths, that is handling the tacit knowledge and the intuition, and also ethic considerations, because this kind of decisions involve the human lives. So the decisions must be made by humans. But also, humans have weakness. Humans have bias, and easy to influenced by the time stress, and difficult to do calculations to managing the complex large-scale operations. So we can see a lot of poor human decisions. And here I can give you a challenging example of train suspension. train suspension is that for the train operators, you need to decide in the flooding scenario. You need to decide whether the train should go or not go, whether pass or stop. So if you take as an operator, if you take a conservative approach, if you shut down the system or you stop the train, well, finally you find out that it's unnecessary. It will erode the public confidence and loss of ridership. But if you take a risky approach, you continue the service. But when the flooding is developing, it can result harm in the riding public and employees. And here we can see a lot of accidents where trains are trapped in the tunnels. Trapped in the tunnel is a very severe situation where, because in the tunnel, the passengers are in the middle of nowhere. No stations can let the passenger to evacuate. So this kind of situations that we consider is very severe situations. And in 2001, Zhengzhou subway stations, one train trapped. There are people dead, people injured, and people dead, and they are trained for 4 hours. And same years for New York subways, roughly 15 to 20 subway trains are trapped, according to news report, and they are trapped the whole night, almost 10 hours. And also New Jersey and New York, a lot of such kind of accidents. And so we simplify this decision-making process for train suspension. So step one, and in the control center dashboard, you need to locate each train. You need to find their location. And second step is to estimate the water ahead, the water level ahead. And here you have some data gaps because water sensors is not everywhere. It also it is installed in some point. You have some blind point in other areas. So what you do is to do interpolation to estimate the water levels between the sensor point. And then based on your prediction, based on your estimation, you need to make a decision whether let the train go or not go. And some humans are risk-seeking, some humans are risk-averse. So we want to understand humans' decision behaviors, decision process in this train suspension. So we ask, what are the behavior patterns exhibited in this process? And can we quantify the human cognitive process? We want quantified is because that we want human AI collaborations. And if the human process, cognitive process can be quantified, and we can handle the quantified result to AI, so that AI can know better, can know human better. And so we created a web page game. We call it micro world games, and where the subway network is simplified. It's just 2 stations and 1 track. The track has been simplified to a track node, and players are present with the information about the station A and the station B. The flood level information in station A and station B. Here we did an assumption that we assume that only the water level sensor only installed in the stations, not the track node. We don't know the water level in the track node. The player need to predict the levels in the track node. And also 3 elevation information of the 3 nodes, station A, station B, and track node. And water level rise follow a certain probability distribution, but the player don't know. In each run, player need to predict the water level and then decided the train passage, whether it's allow or deny. And if the water level at the track node is higher than 50%, here we set the threshold as 50%. If it is higher than 50%, the train will be tracked in the tunnel, in the track. And if it's lower, so it can pass safely to the next station. So here's for the score. And if you choose allow pass and you pass successfully, you will get 0. And if you allow but you're trapped, you will get -50s. And if you deny, you will get -10. This is because of punishment for delay, because you stop the train and it's delayed for compared with the schedule. And we let the human and a computational cognitive model to do the same thing. And for the human side, we do an experiment, which is around 40 minutes. And first we introduce this game, and we let them to do a trial play, and then we start the experiment, which consists of 10 episodes. Each episode will have different conditions, like flood level rise rate and different elevation. And the player need to play 10 rounds per episode. And for the cognitive models, and we use the instance-based learning theory to do the same thing, to predict the water level and to decide the train to pass or not. And the IBL instance-based learning theories, it conceptualizes decision making as a dynamic process that relied on past experience. And here we use a lot of instance as the past experience. Each instance consists of state, decision, and utilities. And before we use IBL to make decisions, we will calculate an activation values, and this value will influence by some cognitive mechanism. Well, it will influence by the similarity, recency, and memory decay. And when faced a decision, the theory will first look at the similar past instance and predict the expected utilities, which is determined through the blending process that consider the past outcome that weighed by their retrieval possibility. I will introduce these terms later. And before IBL make decision, it is trained based on the previous human decisions. We want IBL to emulate human decision-making behaviors. So we use human data to train this IBL before it make decisions. And here is the instance-based learning theories. Basically, we construct, as you can see on the right hand, the instance consists of situation or state and decision and the utilities. And in our case, the situations consists of station A water level, station B water level, and the 3-node elevation. And this instance will be stored in the IBL memories. And before it makes decisions, it will calculate the activation values. Activation values is calculated based on similarity, recency, and also considers memory decays. And based on the activation values, and we calculate the retrieval possibilities. And the expected utilities is weighted by is calculated by weighted using the retrieval possibility as weight, and to combine the different previous outcome from the previous instance. And we choose the highest expected utilities as the choice. And here's some result. And we first look at the prediction error difference between the human and IBL. And this indicator measures the prediction capability between human and the IBL. And as we can see that as the game episode number increase, the prediction error difference gradually decrease. So it suggests that with the experience accumulated, IBL prediction abilities is gradually approaching that of humans. And then we look at, after prediction, we look at the decision match rate. Here, as you can see that the decision match rate gradually increase, and it suggests that IBL can make decisions that are more similar to those of human with the experience accumulated. And then we look at the risk preference. Risk preference measures the tendency to make allowed decisions in high-risk situations. Here, we design the high-risk situations. The threshold is 50%. We define the high-risk situation in that when you predict the water level is higher than 25%, which means you know that the water level is high enough, but you still want to choose the allow decisions. We will consider this situation as a high risk with high risk preference. So we calculate the risk preference. We found that risk preference gradually increase as the game as the episode number increase, which means that with experience accumulated, humans are more biased towards risk-seeking decisions, and IBL also captures this trend. And then we found that the human decision makers they're increasingly risk-seeking decisions, and this decision making may explain the poor decision that humans make in practice. And this risk-seeking behaviors is also equal with prospect series, which is a series says that when faced with a risky choice leading to loss, and humans are risk-seeking, humans become more and more risk-seeking, and they want to take risk to avoid loss. And so for future research, and this is an ongoing research, and we're still collecting data. We do this, we set up different difficulty levels, easy, medium, and hard. And this is the result for the easy levels. And we're still continue to doing research and collect data. And we also create another more complex game settings. As you can see on the picture, it's more realistic. It has a small scale of subway network, and we will test the human decisions and whether it's the same in the more complex setting. And then after the human behavior, we will see how to do research about human AI collaboration. So thank you for your attention, and thank you for the generous support from the CBI. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Any questions for Jinfeng?
Thanks for the great talk. I think you hinted at that in the last slide when in the bullet point, on the both, I would say, game difficulty and complex subway network. So my question was, I think when you make decisions in these particular complex domains, right? the decision, as you said, also is informed by tacit knowledge and reasoning that humans are performing to make sense of all the different variables. Let's put it this way, that are part of this scenario. So my question was, you have designed a game to simulate some of those decisions, but how much of that game incorporates knowledge of the different aspects of the problem that needs to be solved? For what I know of instance-based learning, right, there are different conditions that you can test. It's just the condition that can be just based on experience. So the subject is experiencing a specific scenario and making a decision on that basis. Or then you can add knowledge, some knowledge, so that becomes experience plus knowledge. And then you can test different conditions depending also how much knowledge you insert. So any comment on that? So how challenging is that to incorporate in a game, and what is your plan to do that?
Yeah. Good question. I think we have discussed this the same questions with my co-host Cody Gonzalez, and at that time I proposed a question is that I have no access to the experience, to the expert who really do the train operations. What I have is just we can recruit some no experienced graduate students or some from some crowdsource platform like Amazon Turk, and for the expert, they have certain knowledge. They know what to do in different situations. They have kind of a rule, a book. They have read the books. They know the knowledge. But for the people with no experience, and they may start from zero. I recruit. I do this research. Do this experiment. I recruit some people with no experience, so that the IBL and the human, they can start from zero. They are both the same. They start from zero. But if we have got the chance to recruit some expert, and we can, if we know that they have read some books like A will lead to B, they know this knowledge, and we will populate some instance, and the instance will lead to this knowledge. So we will inject this instance to the IBL so that they have the equal how to say, they have the equal knowledge. IBL and the expert will have the same knowledge levels, and so then we can compare with them. We can see that IBL can really handle. In this case, we see that IBL can handle the people that has no experience, and if we created the instance, a lot of instance that leads to the knowledge, we inject this knowledge into instant IBL models so that we can see that the IBL model can emulate the expert.
In terms of, just to follow up on this quickly, just in terms of how you envision the system being deployed, you mentioned, I believe on slide 14, that there are different types of tasks that humans are better at versus those that models might be better at, right? So I wonder if you wanted to condition, for example, some weighted decision-making, for example, in terms of how the model might be used, let's say on tasks that require you to trade off sometimes conflicting objectives, things that humans are better at, versus those tasks that maybe just simply require the processing of lots of data as quickly as possible, things that systems are better at. Do you envision some sort of weighted decision-making for the application or deployment?
I think for the You mentioned two tasks. One is you need to decision the trade-off, and one is about the task that require a lot of processing. I think the first one needs to human involved. It needs to do some judgment about the some kind of value ethical considerations. And the second is data processing. For example, you extracted the water level from the sensor, you or you extracted the water level from the CCTV, from the image. And I think this kind of work can be done by AI itself. It doesn't need human involved. But what we focus is on some kind of ethical considerations that these decisions must be handled with human, involved with human. So we want to create a cognitive model that to emulate human, and so that AI can know better human.
Yeah. Thanks. Any other questions?
Thanks for the great talk. I found it very interesting, and I remembered when I was doing my master's and I had a class about complexity, dynamic, and uncertainty involved with aircrafts, accidents with aircrafts. And I could connect a lot about this dynamic decision making, because when they are facing some problems, with some sensors are not working, they have to do a lot of follow a lot of instructions that they are trained for, but also they have to improvise. And I would like to ask you if this improvisation was also a matter of your study, and if you see that there is any connection, any lessons learned that we can take from this kind of study and transpose for cross domains applications.
Yeah, I think this question is very good. We have a very famous aircraft accident, which is in 2009 in New York. The New York plane finally chose the Hudson River to land off. So that is the case. That kind of improvisation comes from the human intuition. We call it human intuition. But where does this improvisation or intuition comes from? I think we don't know. I think that in my research, we want the IBL to emulate people, but I don't think the IBL can emulate such kind of improvisation, because it's also learned from people's past experience, past data. And the improvisation and the intuition is also an important factor that we want human AI collaborations. That's why we think that that's a human value. That's why AI has so many advances. We still need humans, especially in such kind of emergency. A lot of things happens unexpected in these situations. But for how to explain the intuition, but I don't know how to explain where it's come from and how to model it. I think that's also a research we should look at.